I adopted Nugget about 5 years ago. He's a teacup chihuahua, about 4 pounds. I loved him dearly and I took him just about everywhere with me. Everyone thought he was adorable. Being a chihuahua though, he has trouble keeping up on the ground and he can't reach very high places. That's why 2 weeks ago when I awoke to find him on my couch, I was surprised. My couch has a high cushion and it's probably almost 3 times as tall as Nugget is. Even when he's on his back legs. Hey buddy, how'd you get up there? I asked him confused as I pet him on his head. He just stared back at me with that confused look on his face dogs seem to perpetually have. I figured I must have let him up there the night before and he just slept there the whole night. I decided to spend the day cuddling my little Nugget and taking him for walks. That night, I made sure that he was in his bed before I went to sleep, then drifted off. Again though, in the morning, he was back on the couch, watching me idly. I was more confused than anything at this point. I knew that Nugget was in his bed the previous night. Oh well, I thought, he's probably just figured out a way to get up on the couch now. Less work for me, I guess. And I tried to push the whole weird coincidence out of my mind. Things slowly but surely got weirder after this. I would find the cabinet where I kept Nugget's treats open in the morning, or his food bowl on the kitchen table. One morning I even found Nugget lackadaisically laying on the couch with multiple bags of chips ripped open. I was growing more and more concerned with what was going on. Was somebody breaking into my house and messing with me? That night, I set up a camera to record my living room where Nugget slept. In the morning, Nugget was again on the couch, but I wasn't concerned with him anymore. The camera had been knocked over and laid on its side. I quickly grabbed it, praying that the fall didn't damage it too bad. The lens was cracked up, the camera itself seemed to be okay. I glanced over at Nugget and he was just sitting there, licking himself like nothing happened. I walked back into my room and replayed the video. Nothing happened for the first few hours of the night. Around 2 in the morning, I saw Nugget get up and walk up to my bedroom door and scratch at it. When I didn't answer, he walked back out to the living room and began pacing around. It seemed like he was searching for something. He stopped all of a sudden once he noticed the camera and stared at it quizzically. Nugget walked over to it and out of frame. A second later, the camera fell and cracked the lens. Nugget reappeared in frame, sniffing the camera a bit before walking out. Relief spread over me as I figured I must just be imagining things. It was only a minute later when that relief turned to confusion and then dread. Off camera, I heard an almost sickening, ripping sound, wet and sticky. It sounded like what you imagine someone's flesh being pulled from the bone might sound. The sound rang all throughout my house for a number of minutes before stopping. I sat there, sweat building on my forehead, waiting to see the source of the sound. Goosebumps spread across my body as I heard the familiar scrapes of Nugget's nails dragging across my hardwood floor. It seemed as if his stride was far longer than before. Suddenly, Nugget's legs returned to the screen. Just his legs. They trailed up and out of the top of the frame now, like spindly stilts made of fur and flesh. I paused the camera, trying to comprehend what I was looking at, when I heard a small yelp from behind me. I turned around to see my dog staring up at me, dopey-eyed with his tongue sticking out of the side of his mouth. His tail was wagging happily as he stared up at me from across my bedroom. Hey Nugget, who's my good boy? I said cautiously, now afraid of all 4 pounds of him. Nugget continued to stare at me, then took a step forward. I jumped back. A Nugget stopped. He paused for a moment, then looked at the camera in my hand and gave a small whimper. I felt bad for the little guy. I began to approach him and gave him a pet when I heard it. The ripping sound from before broke the silence of my room. Nugget's face contorted, and he collapsed on the ground as his legs gave out from under him. His legs began to stretch, suddenly growing much larger than before. His paws grew sharper and stronger looking. After what felt like an eternity, the revolting noises stopped. Nugget slowly climbed to his feet. Now towering far over me, what was once my small 4-pound teacup chihuahua now resembled that of a 7-foot-tall cellar spider. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. All I could do, though, was sit there, in awe of what I was witnessing. Nugget now stared down at me and whimpered a bit, but the same dopey look in his eyes as before. He reached his arm out at me and ran it through my hair. I was terrified. I was sure he was going to rip my scalp off or something. Instead, though, I felt him scratching behind my ear, just like I did for him. Suddenly, he grabbed the back of my neck and pulled me closer to him. Nugget crawled out through the door, legs bending over one another with me in tow. This was it. This was how I was going to die, I thought. Ripped apart by a 7-foot-tall spider chihuahua. He slowly bundled over to the kitchen and dragged his food bowl in front of me, still full from this morning. Nugget looked at me and then at the bowl. I just stared back at him, unsure of what he was trying to say. Nugget reached down and put his long claws on the bowl and gave it a shake, just like I did to tell him his breakfast was ready in the morning. Realization crept across my mind, and I shook my head. "Thanks, boy, but I really am not hungry right now," I told him, still trying to comprehend this whole situation. Nugget whined at me and then shook his food bowl again. I knew that my only way to survive right now was to play along. I slowly got down to the floor and began to eat the dog food. It was so dry and grainy. It tasted nothing like the chicken and beef the box advertised, but I did my best to choke down what I could. Nugget gave me an excited yelp and then scratched behind my ears again with his long claws. Suddenly I felt him drag something across my neck. Fear spread throughout me as what felt like rope tightening around my throat, only for confusion to replace it once I felt the plastic on the back and heard a snap. I looked down and saw a silver tag hanging from the yellow collar that now wrapped around me. My house phone number carved into it. Nugget then walked across the room and crawled onto my couch, a look of contempt on his small face. He reached one of his front paws out and placed it generously on a small doggy bed I kept next to the bed. I stared at him, terrified of what my life had become in the last half an hour. He cocked his head to the side again, patted the dog bed, giving a small whimper. I got up and shakingly moved to the bed and sat down on it, afraid to make any noises or look at my dog. I felt him reach over and scratch under my chin, and I did my best to respond in a way I thought he'd like, moaning in enjoyment. Then there I sat for the entire day next to my dog. He would occasionally get up and climb over whatever furniture was in his way, joints cracking and popping as they glided, and retrieve whatever food he desired. I was too shaken to yell at him for eating my food like I had over the last 5 years. He would occasionally throw me a small piece, and I would devour it without thought. It was so much better than trying to stomach the dry, chalky dog food and treats he was forcing down my throat. After what felt like a lifetime, Nugget got up and walked over to me and crouched down to my level. He patted me on my head a few times and licked the side of my face, then got up and walked away into my room and shut the door. I got up and immediately tried to chase after him, but the moment I reached the door, I heard the lock click. I cried out to him and clawed the door, but he didn't answer. I heard my bed creak as he laid in it and turned out the lights. I didn't know what to do, so I just crawled over to the dog bed and sat back down on it. I don't know what Nugget will do if he finds me on the couch in the morning.